direct from the web, it's Billy Masters Live. And now, please welcome your host, Billy Masters.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Billy Masters Live. Of course, I am your host, Billy Masters. And today is, where is it? Tuesday, Wednesday, 23rd. We are at, I know I have the numbers here somewhere. Somebody put them in front of me and I don't know where they are. So I don't know how long we have been in quarantine. Endlessly is how long we've been in quarantine. We have been in, at least I know this is show 25. And I think there were 4 test shows. So we're in like 15 weeks of quarantine, more or less. We are coming down to the end of Pride Month, and I have been focusing on all openly gay performers, writers, directors, entertainers, newsmen as guests. And, at first I thought it was good. First, I thought it was going to be really easy because all I did was open up my address book and call up all my friends. Then it became really hard because I didn't want to get the same people who I typically talk to. And I talked to a lot of people on the show for the 3 months we've been on. And it's made me sort of look for people who I wouldn't normally consider as guests. And I've learned a lot. So one of the things I'm going to suggest while you're sitting home, if indeed any of you are still sitting home, check out, go and research somebody new, learn about somebody new. There are so many interesting people out there. I was just talking to one of my guests. There's a show on Stars, I believe. Is it Stars? Nod. Okay, Stars, called High Tower, which is set in Provincetown. And I have it here, and the woman who created it may be a guest coming up. I haven't watched it yet, but I also know my friend Kathy Valentine wrote the theme song that they're using. They're using the Go-Go's Vacation, which was written by Kathy Valentine for her band, the Textone. So they're using her version. So I'm always happy. So, and Kathy is going to be on in July as well. Also, I know that I told you guys that today may be a special kind of momentous show. That may be next Tuesday. It depends on if my friends Kenny and Freddie and Wendy will join me. Now they're all sitting there saying, God, we can't get to a hair salon. Anyway, opening anecdote. I always open with an anecdote about somebody famous who I've met in the past and had an encounter with, shall we say. This one was really interesting because Sir Ian McKellen was always somebody who was on my radar. I had always watched a lot of British television, a lot of PBS shows. And before he was even openly gay, I found him riveting. He and Derek Jacobi were 2 of my favorite actors. And I had met, I have such a great story about Derek, but I don't have a photo. So I guess I won't tell you. But Ian McKellen, I was at a Golden Globes party, maybe. I don't know. And he was with Elijah Wood. And somebody who was a friend of his pulled me over and said, Billy is a huge fan of yours. And he grabbed me in an embrace. He's like, you look like you'd make a great dancing partner. And I think he dipped me. I'm not exactly sure. This isn't a Me Too story, by the way. I wish it were a Me Too story, but it was not. But anyway, after we foxtrotted our way around the room, we took this photo. Oh my God, I'm so young. Oh, to be that old again. So was Ian, as a matter of fact. Anyway, that's the Ian McKellen story. Very uneventful story, but something that I remember quite fondly. All right, our guest today. I don't know what to say about David Drake, actually. David Drake has been in my life one way or another for probably 30 years. Probably. I do know, I can tell you how we met. I probably should wait till he's on, but he only knows the story because I've told it to him so many times. It made, I don't know how much of an impression on him, but you know, I was one of many. I had seen him many times in plays, but I saw him in a revival of Boys in the Band, and he was spellbinding. He was so marvelous. And I remember at the time I was a young actor and just fascinated by what he was doing. And what's interesting is that, you know, going in, you're young and you're like, oh, I want to do, you know, the leading man kind of roles or the pretty roles or whatever. And here was somebody playing who was very pretty, but playing really the meaty character role and really commanding the stage in a way that I hadn't seen before, because it was a very quiet performance. It was a very droll performance. The word laconic comes to mind. And I sent him a letter. Now, to be fair, I also sent a letter to two of the hot actors in the play as well. And David Drake was the one who wrote me last. But memorably, he wrote me long after the play had closed, months later, on pink stationery with a Marilyn Monroe stamp. I have it in Los Angeles. If I were here, I would, if I were in Los Angeles, I would show you. And he had talked about how it was such a heavy time doing this show 7-8 times a week. And there had been talk about it transferring, etc. And he really waited till everything was over and he had divested himself of this character to answer the sacks of letters he got, I'm sure. And so he wrote to me. And shortly thereafter, I started writing my column. And then he reached out to me because he remembered. And then we became friends and co-stars and, you know, everything short of lovers, I would say, in many ways. And he's best known for the play, his one-man play, the Night Larry Kramer Kissed Me. He also made a film of it. I'm going to show you a trailer from the film first. Here we go.
That was the night Larry Kramer kissed me. Music, play it loud! We took advantage of Blockbuster's New Year's Eve family rental special and picked up the remake of that Redford Streisand classic, The Way We Were, starring Ben Affleck and Matt Damon.
Didn't we get arrested at St. Patrick's together?
I said, no. I've never even been arrested. You said, oh, well, what are you doing tonight?
You know, there's a place for people like you.
Yeah, New York. Sigh, kiss.
That's David's version, his film version, which is a live stage version of The Night Larry Kramer Kissed Me. Tim Kirkman directed. A few years ago, it was the 20th anniversary of the play, and an all-star cast gathered as a benefit for Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS. David also joined the cast, and he has just a quick clip of him in that.
And you'll see people like Bill and me out with our sons, Richard and Bobby, a family walking hand in hand down the streets of Oklahoma City. Toledo, Ohio, Portland, Oregon, Portland, Maine, Wichita, Kansas, Albuquerque, New Mexico, Morgantown, West Virginia, Baltimore, Maryland, New York City, New York, without condemnation, restrictions, or closets. But with the freedom to love that we got when we took. You know, the truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off.
An archival video of that night was taken, and this is the entire cast. David will talk a little bit more about it, and they are running it as a benefit for the Provincetown Theater, where David is artistic director. And it is this Sunday at 7 p.m. It's a free event. It's a live streaming event, and people can donate because, like so many other arts organizations out there, they've been decimated by this pandemic. They won't be able to perform, and they're always in need of funds. So David came up with this idea, and I am thrilled to have my good friend David Drake join me today. Where are you? David, hi, honey.
I'm here, baby. Well, thank you for all of that. Thank you for having me.
We have a little bit of a delay.
Is there delay? Am I delaying?
Yeah, there's a delay. That's up. Yeah, there's a delay. It's all right. I'm gonna just not look at you and just listen to you. It's fine.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. Thank you.
I don't know how I missed this this 20th anniversary, because usually anything you do in New York, I jump in on a plane and go. So how did I miss it?
I don't know. It was 2013. It was a benefit for Broadway Cares, Equity Fights AIDS. You know, Tom Viola, who runs Broadway Cares, Equity Fights AIDS, was the associate producer on the original production of The Night Larry Kramer.
I didn't know that.
So he has had, I've known him for over 30 years. We've had a lot. It turns out that actually Tom and I's family comes from this tiny little town in the southwest corner of Pennsylvania called McClellantown. And our families both come from there. It's very strange. Yeah, we're probably related. Wow. And so anyway, he was the producer. And then when I was developing The Night Larry Kramer Kissed Me in the early 1990s, before it opened in 92, I did a couple of benefits for Broadway Cares, Equity Fights AIDS at the Triad, which I think was then Paulson's on the Upper West Side on 72nd Street. Mm-hmm. And it was literally Tom Viola with a shoebox collecting the dollars and all of that. It was before Broadway Cares and Equity Fights AIDS came together. In fact, they were two organizations under the umbrella of Actors Equity, but they were separate, and then they came together to join forces. And Tom ran Equity Fights AIDS, and Roger McFarland, who was close friends with Larry Kramer and Larry Kramer's ex, ran Broadway Cares. And then they came together to create them. So there's a lot of history for me with Broadway Cares, and my friendship with Tom and Sean Strube, who produced The Night Larry Kramer Kissed Me, joined together to produce it off Broadway originally. And we also did part of our benefit last time in 2013 was a split with the Zero Project, which is about decriminalizing people with HIV, you know, from being convicted of attempted murder for having sex with somebody. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was a great night. I adapted it because, you know, Billy, you know this, that a number of other actors had performed it over the years, many, like dozens and dozens. It's been translated into 4 languages. It's been on 10 continents. So I knew that the play spoke to actors to act individually as their own voice, taking on this semi-autobiographical play, which is non-linear. It's a series of monologues that depict different aspects of queer life during the height of the AIDS crisis. And
written in a poetic style.
And written, yeah, it was very much inspired by For Colored Girls.
Mm-hmm, right.
Suicide When the Rainbow Is Enough. I read it the same summer I started writing Night Larry Kramer Kissed Me. So there's a cadence and a poetic kind of choreo poem aspect to a lot of the pieces, like an internalized monologue. And so when I went to look at doing a marking the 20th anniversary, people started saying, "Oh, you should do it. You should do it." I'm like, "Oh my God. This is such a 20-something play. It's very physical."
And when you filmed it, how many years earlier had you filmed it?
I filmed that in 1999. Rated
Okay, so
yeah.
because I just remember when you filmed it and you said, look, this may be it. So
This
I've got
is
to film it. And now here you are again 7 years ago saying, I guess we'll do it again.
Well, what I did was I broke it up. I thought, the play is about a community. And so I adapted it for one. And I thought it would work as a benefit very well if we broke it up into chunks, the different monologues, and then wove it like for colored girls. Like, for instance, Why I Go to the Gym is 4 guys. It's Clay Elder, Wes Taylor, Robin DeJesus, and Aaron Tone. And they weave in and out of Why I Go to the Gym. And
actually, I have a clip of that. So hold on, let's just show of that particular moment since you brought it up.
Well, they're so sexy.
Yeah, well, they are indeed. Here we are.
And so repetition. Set to build my
pyramid up to the highest.
Wait! Felt that burn. Yeah. That's why I go to the gym.
I love that clip. How did you decide, like, for instance, for that clip, who would get what parts? How did you decide those 4?
It wasn't well. I was familiar with Clay Elder. I knew Aaron Tone. I directed him in plays.
Right.
Provincetown, and I wanted to bring some Provincetown people into the story. What I did with Brenda Cudero and Aaron Tone, it was melding my worlds together. But I'd seen Clay Elder in One Arm, this Tennessee Williams play, and he was very ferocious and wonderful and beautiful. And I thought, he's got the anger inside of him to lead that. So I wanted Aaron, I wanted a bear, and I thought, I want Robin DeJesus. So I just reached out to openly gay actors mostly. And it wasn't like, we flipped around a little bit, but with the parts, but I knew Clay's anchored it. And then I built these lines on top of the other actors that were in the script, but we dispersed them according to their personalities, really. I mean, Wes is really funny, as you can see. He's a natural comedian, as they all were, actually. So is Robin DeJesus. He gets some of the best laughs.
Well, clearly.
And a sweetheart, too. So it was, I knew I wasn't going to do Why I Go to the Gym. I start the play, and then the first birthday is mine. Then the second birthday, another guy joins me, Chad Ryan. And then the third birthday, which is the night Larry Kramer kissed me, a third actor joins me. So it's the 3 of us. It's kind of like on the town. Right. And then
there is music really behind this play. I mean, as a musician primarily, I remember reading it and feeling that it is written in a musical style.
It is. It's a way of. My mother was a music teacher. My father was an English teacher. So I think some sort of combination of those two things come into play. I was a musician. I mean, not a musician. I played clarinet in high school, but I read music, and I think rhythmically, I was an actor, and so rhythms and paces and breathing really fall into how to get into a performance for me. And so it works for this. And because a lot of these pieces are internal monologues, if you will, it's the internal thoughts, the stream of consciousness, very Karen Finley in that way. And for colored girls, it comes out to the place of rage many times. There's naturalism in it as well. There's that ending monologue in The Way We Were, and there's a little kid monologue that Rory O'Malley plays beautifully, and he's so funny, and he's so sweet, and I wanted all openly gay guys too. You know, that was part of like, well, let me claim these actors who are braving it in 2013, and they can claim the play too. And, you know, I asked my friend B.D. Wong, who I'd done a play with. He was in like that on it to do a model. Anthony Rapp, same thing. He was a friend. He went in right away. So the gathering came very quickly, and it became very easy to actually distribute the parts to the individuals. I thought of Andre DeShields because I've always loved him and admired him. And I wanted an elder in the play. again, part of the community aspect was you have the younger guys and then the middle-aged guys and the older. It became intergenerational because the AIDS epidemic and queer experience is intergenerational and it's interracial. So I tried to mix as best I could.
Although the play is really not written in I guess, I'm going to contradict myself. I was about to say the play is not written for multi-generations, but I guess if you go all the way to the end, it really is.
Yeah.
Because there is a reflection moment.
Yeah. And the vigil scene, 1,000 Points of Light, which has, is trying to make some kind of sense, spiritual sense of this constant sense of loss of these people. That's the quest of it. And where did you go is the central action or question that is asked over and over again in that piece. Where did you go? Where did you go? You were just here. And which is a question many of us ask with all kinds of loss in our lives. Like, oh, where did you go? Because they go inside us, an act of transference. But in the case of Andre de Shields, he said, thank you for this, David. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity because it actually helped me heal something I didn't realize was unhealed. And that was very beautiful to me. I wanted him as a kind of mythic character of an older generation and then the younger ones and then the middle-aged ones. So that piece was intergenerational on purpose. I was aiming towards that. Whereas the other pieces tend to be more 20-something.
Because that's what you were when you wrote it.
Exactly. And Why I Go to the Gym, 12-inch single, The Night Larry Kramer Kissed Me, they're all very, physical and young. They have a young energy.
Well, I'm sorry to cut you off. We have one of the people who is part of the show. And of that earlier generation. Well, I've been a fan of Wesley Taylor's for a very long time. And I only met him once and it was very, very brief. And it was brief because I had never met him before or even seen him. I mean, I've seen him on stage. We had many mutual friends and he was with all of his friends. And I said, okay, I said, hi, now let's get out of here. There are moments that you say, this isn't the moment to have a moment, which you and I had that moment at a perfect time. But just recently I was talking about him because the Bombshell concert streamed, which of course was written by our good friends Mark Shaman and Scott Whitman, and I had this picture in my column, and what I wrote, and I need to put on glasses to read it, was at the very end I said it would be impossible for me to let a smash item end without noting the presence of the dreamy Wesley Taylor. And let me just show a little clip of that before we bring. Oh, look, I think he's blushing. All right, let me just show this little clip, which I think is extraordinary.
What are you sleeping?
Well, I adore Chanel No. 5 and not much more.
Any advice for a girl in the city?
If you're two-faced, at least make one of them pretty.
The studio says lateness is your favorite crime.
I've been on a calendar, but never on time.
So when you posed nude, your inhibitions were gone.
I took everything off but left the radio on.
I love watching somebody watch.
Oh, yes, the chase of the blues boys, just chase the news boys, fame has plenty of perks.
If your life's a mess, call the foreign press.
Be they Indian, Parisian, British, German, or Turk.
I'm glad you crave my best conjugations.
Yes, public relations is my favorite sound.
'Cause when I'm alone, I can pick up the phone. The whole mistake is always
I am thrilled to welcome Wesley Taylor to the show. Wesley, move over. No, the other way. There you are.
Hi. Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
Wesley, thank you so much for doing it. It's one thing when I get people I know and just say, come and play. And they're like, fine. Somebody I don't really know, hi, come and play. The fact that you're doing it, I appreciate it immensely.
I had no idea you were going to play that clip beforehand. I'm a little embarrassed, but thank you.
Well, can I tell you that is not the clip I wanted to play, and I can't run the clip I wanted to play because we'd be pulled off the air.
Oh.
It is the I wanted to show the rumor has it sequence, and from Smash, and the reason I can't run the rumor has it sequence is because of the song, obviously, and the show, but I know that dancer. I dated that dancer in college. And that's, I had seen you on stage beforehand, but and even when Smash started, I don't think you were immediately on my radar, but the rumor has it sequence. I went, this is a fully formed character with a point of view, with some sass, with some compassion. And it was the first time we really got to see your character is a multi-dimensional person rather than somebody who's really talented with a few catty barbs. And I don't know how much of that is you and how much of that is the writing, but I'm giving you the credit.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. It's so sweet. And hi, David. You look very handsome with your scruff. Looks very good.
Thank you. You too. I see. You're letting it all out, right?
Yep. Just I don't know what's happening. We're just gonna keep saying yes.
Wesley, where are you spending the pandemic? Where are you?
I'm actually at my fiance's family's home in North Carolina.
Oh my!
Who I should mention is Isaac Cole Powell, who is the star of West Side Story.
Yeah.
And here the two of you are.
Oh,
no, they're so adorable.
And well, in case anyone wants a little bit more skin, there. And we go for the lowest common denominator when necessary.
Look, know your audience,
Exactly.
Know your audience.
So he was working on West Side Story. Were you working on something when this happened?
Yeah, I was doing Assassins downtown.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, David and I went to see that together. The Broadway production. Do you remember?
The Joe Mantello on Broadway.
Right. I saw the archives of that production. It was gorgeous production.
It was.
Did you just laugh at me because I watched the archives?
Yes, because I love when people do it.
Oh my God! Were you not in New York when that happened? Were you still in?
He may have been in preschool, David.
Well, let's see. Was it 2004?
It was right. 2003.
That sounds about right. Like 15.
September 11th.
So I was graduating high school. Yeah.
All right. Well, you weren't that young. Right. You could have seen it.
Billy and I sat like way in the cheese on the steps.
Wow.
Yeah, we actually sat on the right. We didn't sit in our seats. We decided to go and lean against a railing, and we had the best time.
Oh, it was great.
I mean, it's a junior show. It's
Wesley. Who were you playing in Assassins?
Giuseppe Zangara, the Italian who tries to shoot FDR.
How did that go for you?
I mean, we were only in rehearsal for a week and a half before we got shut down. So.
I thought you hadn't gone into performance yet.
No. So Isaac was in performance. West Side Story had been up for a couple months at that point, but yeah, we were just at the beginning of our rehearsal process. So it was like, Broadway shut down, and then we continued to rehearse for another week because we were like, supposed to be playing for a house that was under 500 seats, so it was going to be okay at that time. But then they eventually shut us down as well, and so I just joined him down here with his family.
Wesley, how did you and David meet?
Okay, so I was thinking about this today before this interview, and I believe what happened is I got an email from Tom Viola saying that he was going to, he was asking me if he could share my contact with David, and that he was a longtime friend of his, and that Tom, I guess, was really close with Allison Frazier, and the two of them had watched my web series, It Could Be Worse.
Exactly.
And which I had kind of built this role around Allison Frazier. And so they were being very complimentary in terms of that web series, and then when and then they were just like, will you be a part of this thing with all these amazing people? And I was like, duh. So we didn't meet. It was just
we hadn't met before. I'd only been admired his work because I knew Allison too from The Divine Sister. That's
well, of course.
Right. I was going through my contacts to try to find people.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Oh yes, I want Wes Taylor."
As so many others have.
It was such a good time, though. What a special night.
Did you know the play, Wesley?
I didn't. I have to say. And I also, I'm going to be honest. I was really late in my gay education, just generally. I came from a very conservative evangelical background. I came out late in the game. Late in the game. I feel like I never had a gay fraternity or community that I felt like I had brothers and people that I could get advice and hear, and so when this experience, and then also Tales of the City at ACT in San Francisco.
Sure, where you played Mouse.
Yeah, those experiences were huge and very formative in my early 20s of just being, not even the work itself, just being surrounded by all of these openly confident out gay men and of different generations, Beatty and Andre and Anthony Rapp and all these people that I looked up to be able to work with them even for a night. It was like a week or 2 weeks total of rehearsal and all that, but it was a really special thing I got to do. So
it was special. It was like a community. Yeah, that's what it was intended to be, and it turned out that way. No divas or anything.
No.
Guys have all been friends and stuff since. I know Brandon and Robin remain friends, and because sometimes when we do these shows, you do stay friends with some people, and then you just pick up where you left off with others. It's an odd thing when we do shows like that.
Well, even if you're not like hanging out with them, like I met Robin De Jesus doing The Night Larry Kramer Kissed Me, and now when I see Robin, it's always joyous. It's always this infectious, joyous moment. So it was a special connection, that show, for all of us.
Good. I'm glad. Yeah.
What I love about being a little bit older at this point and seeing somebody's career develop, Wesley, is that it's been fascinating for me to watch you from, sort of smaller roles to bigger roles, to dancing, to singing, to leading roles. And because of social media and because the world has changed, I think this may be the first generation where we can watch an actor's trajectory so intently. And also with the web series, creating your own content. It really seems to, it's almost, when friends of mine are doing things like this, it's like, oh, I already know you, so I'm seeing you do what you do. You're really seeing somebody building a career from scratch.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I never thought about it like that.
I mean, when you started the web series, which of course was great, did you feel like, okay, well, this is kind of like the Wild West, I can do whatever I want?
Yeah, well, in terms of the web content, it really was. I never considered myself a writer, seriously. I studied playwriting in college as my academic, because it was a conservatory. You had to take some academics to get your degree, and so I took playwriting and creative writing and things because I was interested in it, but I didn't take myself seriously. And we were backstage at Rock of Ages, my first Broadway show, and we were trying to give the producers backstage content. It was like the beginning of that, before Broadway.com did all those vlogs and like following people around backstage. And, we had hours of footage of nothingness, people just eating food at the dinner break and stuff. And we were like, let's actually not turn in drivel. Let's actually maybe come up with a narrative, a silly narrative, but maybe let's just string together some funny things. And that gave us so much fulfillment while doing it that we were like, oh, maybe we should actually take this seriously and do something, So we created Billy Green, which was this YouTube series. And then It Could Be Worse came after that, which was more like, thank you. And then the last 3 years I've been doing Indoor Boys with Alex Wise, and that is, that was also, I had moved to LA, and the two of us were waiting on development for other projects that we were writing, and it was just born out of creative being stifled and wanting to, put stuff out there. So.
What's interesting about what you're saying, and we have another guest that's sort of on deck, so I'm telling him this is like a clue so he can put his phone down. Because what you're telling me sounds strikingly similar to an earlier era where people would kind of say, okay, let's put on a show. Let's make something for ourselves, because either we aren't getting the roles we want or we just want to have fun. Either way. And one of those people was very instrumental in David's career, and that is Charles Busch.
Yeah.
Hello, my darling.
I know both these fellows. I played Wesley's mother in a reading of an old 1920s play, The Silver
Cord?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, so I had no idea.
David's drag mother, and I'm your...
That's true.
Right. All in the family right here.
Well, see, sometimes the show just writes itself. I had no idea about that. But Charles, when you were listening to Wesley talking about, creating content for the web and sort of building things out of nothing, it just sounds a lot like when you were putting together Vampire Lesbians of Sodom, that it was really kind of similar, just a different medium.
Yes, it's so funny. And it hadn't really occurred to me, because people are always asking me, over the years, how is it? What's it like for young people today? Could what happened to you with Vampire Lesbians happen now? And until recently, I'd say, well, there's young people are always going to find their way in. It's just always going to happen. But certainly, it'd be very different from. It's a question of real estate when the East Village, Alphabet City, in the mid 80s was just this no man's land where we could somehow feel free. But today it hadn't occurred to me. Today it's not. It's the internet. Shit.
We have lost Mr. Busch.
No, I need him later this season.
Okay, now wait. I'll take him out while he tries to figure this out, because we may have this could inadvertently be a snuff film.
No, this can't.
Oh, Charles, come back to us. Oh, well, while we're waiting for him, that was actually, can I just say that you were here? Oh, wait. Oh, no, he's completely gone. He's now completely offline. Someone call 911. But no, I'm actually going to go back to Wesley for a second and be very trite and not even worry about if Charles Busch is alive.
Oh my God, that really got me.
Yeah, well. Please, I think, there was a very famous video of Jan Hooks on Saturday Night Live as Betty Davis reading her will. And when she comes back, the chair is empty. And she's like, I fell out of my chair. So I can only hope it's that simple. Wesley, there was I had read an interview when the Bombshell concert happened about how when you were doing Smash, it was particularly hard for you because a lot of people were learning. Actually, it sounds like everybody had a hard situation in a different way. They were recording songs, they were learning choreography, they were learning blocking, acting, but you kind of came into it thrown into the deep end, having never done television before. Is that true?
Yeah, truly. I had done some commercials and some industrials and like a soap opera, but this was like a very different ballgame. This was, the budget was like $4 million an episode. It was Steven Spielberg. It was like, DreamWorks money and Angelica Houston and Deborah Messing and all these people walking around and hundreds of people on set. And I was like, I was of course beside myself with excitement. But also I was cast as this character who was in the ensemble, this chorus boy who I was sort of given the, a lot of the expositional responsibilities, he said, she said, just so that we could learn a lot of information. But I was the dancer who acted on that show, so like most of the dancers are the cream of the crop, best of the biz hoofers on Broadway. And I'm not, but I dance, I dance well. And I was sort of like the face of the ensemble. So I would say the lines, that they wanted to, it was divisive, but I think I earned my place on the show after a few episodes, and then they were like, okay, we can write for him instead of just using him, But what I found was that because I was playing this dancer who had to be in these big numbers, they rehearsed me with those hoofers. Mm-hmm. And, it's not like what I'm used to, which is the choreographer comes in when you're doing a production and has done the homework and you learn the steps as the sort of frozen thing. This was like Josh Burgas, so the choreographer, didn't have any time. He was always on set. He was doing long overtime hours every day. He didn't have time to come up with it at home. So it was like rehearsal was choreographing it with his go-to dancers on Broadway, helping him figure it out. So the amount of different versions we would go through and relearn, and I would cry. Like I can remember several times of just breaking down in tears because I was like, I can't learn any other version. Like, you have to figure it out and then give it to me, because I'm not this good.
This isn't my skill set.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So it was really challenging, and the hours, because they had so much money, we would like be in dance rehearsal from 6 a.m. to noon, and then we would have a lunch break, and then we would shoot from 1 p.m. to 10 p.m. It was just insane.
And also, since you were playing a character, you had to do that work in addition to this chorus work that was all encompassing. It sounds like each one would have been a full-time job.
Truly, but I was very happy for whenever I had things to say. Like whenever I was on camera with coverage instead of dancing in a number, I was very grateful, because, I was like, this is what I was hired for. The dancing was really the hard thing to keep up with all the time. And I love dancing. That's not to say that I don't enjoy that, but it was it was a challenge.
Yeah, I was actually kind of disappointed, because when I saw the Bombshell concert, you're only in that number, and I'm like, I'm used to seeing him in all those numbers, and obviously it's not what you would do.
The thing is, I was actually simultaneously during that concert, I was doing cabaret at the Signature Theater in DC. So I was doing the MC 8 times a week, and I was very, busy, and I couldn't even be a part of this. But then, and I wanted to, and I was having conversations with Josh Burgas, because he was, putting together the numbers, and he was like, it's okay. We already have enough people. Like, don't worry about it. Just do your thing. And then one day I got an email from him saying Christian Borle felt a little overwhelmed by the amount of songs he had to do or something. And so he was just opting out of one of them. And Josh was like, will you take his song with Kat? And I was like, yeah, can you send me videos of what I need to do? And so I learned it based off these videos that he sent to DC. And then I came in on the day and rehearsed for an hour, and then we threw it up there. So it was a whirlwind.
But it was great to see you there. Had you not been a part of it, I think it would have really disappointed a lot of fans, because you were a pivotal part of the show. And I see Mr. Busch is back, and I believe in one piece. Let us see. Hold on, fingers crossed. Where are you, Charles? Hold on. Oh my God. There. Yeah. Hello, darling.
The lid to the laptop flipped over. That's
well, it's better the lid than you, so that's fine.
Exactly. I flipped my lid. Yeah.
It kind of worked though. It kind of felt like the punctuation to a comedy beat,
and it was very dramatic.
That rhythm, honey.
Yeah.
Charles, can I ask you, we're talking about the beginnings of Vampire Lesbians and all that stuff. That's how you met David, but I don't know this story, and I adore both of you.
Okay. So this is your life, David Drake, isn't it?
It kind of is.
I know.
But I should say, for anybody thinking Charles is getting short shrift, he is our go-to on this show. He is my Topo Gijo, frankly.
I'm the Topo Gijo to your Ed Sullivan.
Yes, you are. And I thank you.
I'm the Genevieve to your Jack Parr, which most people won't know the reference. Anyway, we were doing Vampire Lesbians off Broadway, and I'd been playing it for nearly 2 years. And then the whole cast the original cast, we were all going to move down the street to another theater to do Psycho Beach Party. And so we were gradually replaced each person in our company with new people to keep. So, but the last one to go was me. And we were very young and we'd never had the experience of recasting, one of my roles. And so we just kept looking for people. We didn't even know really what we were looking for. And back in 1987, there weren't that many actors who wanted to appear in a drag role. They were scared. So we saw all these people, and I was getting really kind of nervous that I was never going to get out, and we had a deadline at a point to start Psycho Beach Party, And I'd done the play too often. I started hallucinating. I kept seeing dog shit on the stage floor, and I would get the house manager to come put his nose down to tell me it's not dog shit. Now, really, my one day, so we're having yet another series of auditions. And now David Drake was this adorable, what were you, 23 years old or something like that?
Yeah, it's 23.
And he was just this kid, this beautiful young boy who knew the publicist, used to hang around and come to the show a lot. And so we're getting the new list of people auditioning. I see David Drake. It's like, oh, Christ, are we down to the kid? If things are that bad, that we're down to the kid. And so then he gets up there and he's seen the show, 137 times. So he totally could do my performance exactly like, and we were laughing so hard. Plus, we kind of look alike. David and I bear a resemblance, and we were all laughing, but we couldn't tell if we were laughing because he was funny or because of the fact that he had observed in such minute detail, what I had been doing. So then we thought, well, hey, maybe we could just even get him to be like fabulous, and we did. And then of course you played it probably more than I did. You were in it for years and developed your own, and he found his own performance eventually, and it wasn't a carbon copy, but that was how we started that.
Yeah, you have to start with the machinery of it. I came from dance originally, so the mimicry of a performance was part of. Acting is mimicking, part of it, and so I just had to reflect that. You have to fit into a machine. Wes, I don't know if you've ever replaced anybody or anything like that, but there's machines in those shows, so you don't want to disrupt it. You have to fit it. But I also fit Charles's costumes, which helped the budget because, a show in its second year, you got to keep it going. And the wigs and then Charles showed me, I went to his apartment after they cast me. But they weren't going to call me back after the second audition. And I was like, yeah. And I demanded my agent, Bob Bessada, Coleman Rosenberg. I said, I can do that. I can do that. They're like, well, they're not really sure about that last part of the Madeline, the final scene, the older part. And I said, I can do that. I'm going to go in. So I came in and I gave it, everything. And they said, oh, okay. So they put me on a 6-month trial contract.
If you can't get it in 6 months.
Well, I know. But they were going to open Psycho Beach Party. And just in case, there was the job opportunity to come back if I would out or something. But it did all work out beautifully because Psycho Beach Party was a hit. And that was Charles Busch Lane, McDougal Street.
That's crazy.
I just have to quickly ask David. David, did you say your agent was Bob Bessada, like Robert Bessada?
Yeah, from North Carolina School of the Arts. Do you know him from there?
That's where I went to school.
Oh my God! Yeah, Gary Friedman was one of my mentors.
Mine too, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah. I did 2 shows at Great Lakes for him.
I love those. I love those 2 men. Yeah. Anyway, keep going.
I know. Please, I love it because what I have found in life, let alone on this show, is that you find out that people do. David and I have talked about this. That the good people tend to find each other, and you realize that if you have this energy, somehow there is a very close connection. You just haven't made it yet, and I knew.
Off. I was doing a play called Dancing in the Dark, this little gay comedy where I got tied up to a chair in underwear, and as you did.
As you do, yeah.
And he came and saw the show, and afterwards I came out in a robe, And I leaned over and was saying something to somebody, and that's when he went, they're replacing Charles Busch. He saw the robe, he saw me, and he went, and that's when he contacted me and said, would you be interested in going in on this? And from there, it became my agent for like 4 years.
Wow.
Before he left North Carolina.
And we have this photo of the two of you, Charles and David.
Oh, from
back in the day.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And which I adore. I think it's the only photo I have ever come across of the two of you from those days. I'm sure there are others.
Yeah, why would there be? Yeah.
But it just, it's funny. David knows this. I don't know if Charles knows this. So I didn't get to see Charles in Vampire Lesbians. I saw David, and
but I was Charles, so
Well, I think if I'm not mistaken, the same weekend I saw Psycho Beach Party. So
on in. Yeah.
So it was, but when David and I connected, and it was, I don't know how many years later, 10, 15 years later, you had already had a career in all this momentum, but I was able to go back and find those playbills. And I'm like, no, I saw you. So, I mean, and then Charles and I, oh God, it's just, I can't even go into it.
I don't even know how long we've been friends or how that started.
Well, I had been a fan for a million years, and you had written me a thank you letter about something I had written. I think I reviewed something, and we immediately connected, but I don't think David will mind if I tell this story. And if he does, well, what is he going to do? Charles had invited me to, he wanted to get together the next time I was in New York, which I was all the time. And I figured we'd go to lunch, we'd go to dinner or something. And Charles said, well, just come to the house. And I told David this because I was somewhat taken aback because I really was in awe of Charles. And just wasn't sure, how to approach this. And David said something that I've told Charles, but I never told him who said it, which was, just remember this. Charles is very seductive.
Wow, coming from David Drake. Wow.
Yes, so.
And then of course later explained not seductive necessarily sexually, but seductive that he draws you out. You don't have to worry about working hard. That if he's inviting you into his house, he's inviting you into his life. And
not his bedroom.
But clearly not.
Well, I think one of the things is, when I was growing up, like a lot of kids, I went through a very shy period in adolescence because I'd kind of been rather outgoing, I think, early on. And then, I got very shy, withdrawn, and neurotic. And I was raised by my aunt. And one of the things she used to say to me, just ask questions. The other person people always want to talk about themselves. So just listen and keep asking questions, and you'll always have something to say. So that was helpful. So if that turned into a form of seduction, well then,
you were pulling it out. You do that.
Yeah.
Well, I found that everybody who you meet, particularly people who you've admired, you can learn something from if you're listening. And sometimes you'll learn something about yourself if they are asking the right questions. Wesley, see, it's so interesting to me because we actually have kind of, several generations here in the theater. When Charles and David were starting, you were starting in sort of the off-Broadway, the beatnik, where being gay was not a big deal at all. Wesley, it seems to me that you just kind of jumped in. You got a lot of opportunities that were big opportunities really early in your life.
Yeah.
Were you openly gay at that point? Was it an issue? I mean, you're kind of young as it is, but
Yeah, no, I mean, I came out my first year of college. So I was out when I got to New York City, but I also I had never entertained the notion that was connected to my career like that, because it wasn't to me that, I don't know, it never clicked. And so gay German boy the first out of the gate, I was sort of like taken aback when I would go to the stage door and people were like, "Are you gay in real life?" And I was just like, what? And I had never thought about it because I also, no one knew who I was at that point. I wasn't really doing interviews. This was off Broadway before it transferred. And
keep breaking up.
Yep, we're losing Wesley slightly.
Yeah.
Yes, there you are. We've got you back. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry about that. I was just saying that I guess I didn't realize that anyone would care about my personal life at that moment in time, since I was brand new to the scene. So I hadn't even thought about the notion of being out publicly. Like, it wasn't even, you know. And then I was like, well, yeah, of course I'm gay. Yeah, you know. And and we were like, you know, in pictures together and stuff. And then I started having these feelings that actors can get of like, oh, I don't want to be pigeonholed. I don't want to only play, you know, Smash came after that. That was a very, and I was like, I want to play straight guys. I want to play, you know, and that was a very young point of view. I think I evolved into someone who doesn't want to be safe in my career, to not be pigeonholed or not be seen a certain way. To me, I think I'd be happy if I played gay men for the rest of my life at this point. I want to, and I think that also came with me beginning to realize that I was a writer and that I was creating works, and what for, you know, what was I doing with it, you know? And so this young mindset of, I didn't come into this business to be a role model. That's not my responsibility. I just want to be a good actor. I want to be Daniel Day-Lewis. I want to disappear into characters. And then the older you get, or at least for me on my personal trajectory, the more I was like, what's the point? Like, what's the point if I don't have an impact, you know, socially, or, you know, like when I was a kid, I had no one. I lived in Florida. I didn't have access to New York City and seeing the off-Broadway theater that you guys were doing. I was turning on the TV, and the only thing I had by high school was Will and Grace. And say what you want, but that shit is huge. It is. Right. It is representation.
Right.
It cannot be taken for granted. And so I, you know, yeah, that was a really inarticulate roundabout way of.
No, but it covers it. I think that you know, David and I have talked about this, and Charles and I probably on a different level, that because I was in Boston, able to go to New York a little bit more regularly, but I remember vividly seeing Charles Busch on television, being interviewed, and there were a handful of people. There was Charles Busch, there was David Dillon, there was David Drake. Those were really the three people who, at the time, I said, oh, you can write plays, you can act in plays, and you can be gay. And they did pave the way. Had there not been those people, there wouldn't be a Billy Masters.
It's also a little bit of self-loathing, obviously, in the sense that like when you're growing up and you enjoy theater and you're trying to explain to your father that, don't worry, I'm still straight, I just enjoy theater. And then when, you know, and then you come out and there's a continual sort of but you'll still be proud of me because I'm not prancing around, you know, like that. The self-loathing takes decades to shave off.
It does.
I guess it's different for everyone and how you were raised, but where I came from, which was a very conservative, evangelical upbringing, I'm still working on it. I'm still working on getting rid of these layers of shame and loathing. So,
well, and I think, as you said, when you see representation on TV, that helps.
Yeah.
David, you were going to say something?
And Bill, yeah, well, you also have three guys here who are writing their own stories, or writing stories from their own point of view. Right. So it's like, here's what I have, and here's what I want to give to the world. You know, and Charles gives what he gives to the world, and Wes gives what he gives to the world, and I give what I give to the world. And you write a column for the last 20 years, right?
Right.
So you give how you want to give to the world from your point of view. How do you look at the world? And whatever that comes out is authentically your artist voice. but that's separate from celebrity, and celebrity is its own machinery and mechanism, which has to do with, are you gay, are you not gay, all the I didn't want, after I touched on celebrity, the only thing good about celebrity for me was to sell tickets, to a show. If you thought it was a celebrity, great. But in real life, I was no good at it. I thought that's what I was supposed to be. I thought being a celebrity would save my life, the way it does everybody else, but it never does. Hollywood Babylon. And so many gays think that, how many actors, gay guys come to New York to be actors and they end up being something else, right? But we all think stardom will save us. But it doesn't. It's like, oh no, I need my private life. I don't want to go out. I don't want to be seen. I'm so interested. But I took that, happened over time, and I became a better artist when I let go of that. When I just let go of that and just focused on the work. And then I stepped behind the scenes as a director and a writer and a teacher. And I love it. I love working with other people and getting them to grow in front of me and for an audience. I just love it.
Yeah.
I love your
Charles,
actors.
Charles, has celebrity been a burden to you, Charles?
Charles, you wear it very well.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I'll take his.
You are. You're comfortable with it.
It's a terrible burden, but I've borne it gracefully. No, but it's going back a little bit, where you're saying where maybe I was a role model for some people. For me, it was Charles Ludlam, who I saw at a very impressionable age. And I saw that because the goal for me, the dream, was always just to be an actor, and I hadn't really thought about how I was really going to pursue that, and being this sort of androgynous odd type, because certainly, I particularly saw in college at Northwestern that there was going to be no career for me in a regular way at that point in 1973. It just wasn't going to be. But when I saw Ludlam, and then and other people too, and I saw Jeff Weiss and all these wonderful performance artists back in the early 70s, and performing their own work and creating their own kind of theatrical landscape, that was so inspiring. And the thing is, I'd always been writing. I was writing, churning out full-length plays at 11 years old. I don't know why my teachers thought I was so unexceptional and so invisible, but I was doing all this stuff, and but it really did. I joke about it, but it took me to the advanced age of 19 to figure out I could write a part for myself, and then that was the thing. And then I never wanted to do anything else, because I wanted to be the best of what I can do, and I knew that there was always going to be somebody better than me as straight acting goes, and everything I've done, and kind of sort of like an Oz or whatever, I've always thought, somebody else could have played that better. But when in my own very narrow world, I can take great pride and be a little arrogant about it.
David Drake, did you kind of took a page from that, having come out of a Charles Busch play, and then wrote a play for yourself, which really took off-Broadway by storm. And I don't know people how much history they know. We talk about queer history here every once in a while. There was a billboard.
I was a big star.
All right, keep it in your pants, Drake. You want to be a star, you don't want to.
But that was part of the, my director made me do that too. Like, let's get rid of the clothes. Let's do this and this. And I'm like, no. And, all of that. But I did. I was really empowered. I think Charles, in a subliminal, more of a subtler way, because I didn't try to imitate what Charles was doing, the form or the genre. But I could see you could write your own expression. That's what I'm getting at. You write your own expression, right? And put that on stage, and that it doesn't have to conform with what is commercial, so to speak, what we think of as commercial. Because if you have an authentic expression, it can very well be commercial automatically, because it's a piece of the story that's missing from the story, and you add it to the story. And at that time, I was very political. I mean, I was very into, like, at performance-wise, I was very into Karen Finley. as I said before, and Deshaki Sean Gay with For Colored Girls. I was reading Essex Hemphill. I was reading a lot of poetry. And I really wanted to say something about being queer, but also about saving lives. I was trying to figure out how to dismantle systemic homophobia with those monologues. That it was this conglomerate that created this thing that was killing our loved ones. And Charles knows this because we had several shared loved ones whom we lost during that time. And it was very painful and weird to live through young people just disappearing. And it was horrible. So doing the play was sort of an activist mode for me to stop it. In the process, I became a writer, scared the crap out of me too, because I couldn't write the second play. It took me 10 years to write the second play.
It was so wonderful. I will never forget Son of Jackula. I loved it. It was so much. Oh, God, I loved it.
So I played my dad and all that too. It was
brilliantly.
It was, yeah, and what a gorgeous production, by the way.
That was, yeah, at New York Live Arts now.
Yeah, that was
you
know, so it's interesting that we're talking about sort of using art to combat you know, a movement, you know, during the AIDS crisis and for the gay pride movement, really, for people to have something to be proud of. And we're now in a time where, you know, we're talking about Black Lives Matter and systemic racism.
Right.
And what's interesting to me is that at least the gay movement, it was not about erasing the past or being ashamed of the past, but making people acknowledge the past and where do you go from here. And I have lots of conversations. You guys know, Wesley doesn't, but Jennifer Lewis is one of my best friends.
I just watched your Jennifer Lewis one of your Jennifer Lewis interviews yesterday.
Yeah, and
One of them, right?
yeah, there are so many. But and I wrote in this week's column that last week when I was talking to her about it, she can be very stern in a motherly way. And as I wrote in this week's column, she said, you shouldn't know where we're coming from because it's not part of your background, but you should know.
Right.
So there is that duality that you're not expected to know, but why don't you know? Right. And I didn't feel that. Maybe because the gay movement was so subversive, the gay life, you can't necessarily see somebody and know they're gay, although some you can. We're not supposed to say that, but some you can. But so you sort of felt automatically, you don't know anything about us, so we have to educate you. And I think that's kind of where we are right now in this Black Lives Matter, that there's so much we take for granted. Maybe we have to start with education.
Oh God, yes. Oh God, yeah. I mean, the gay movement too. If you look at, there are still Stonewall survivors. We have lived in a crunched version of a movement. You know, that Wes, you're getting married and you're talking about staying with
to a Broadway leading man.
Yeah,
let's not even forget that,
and a good one.
Yeah. All right.
I know. I'm sorry.
You know, it's so funny. The one who eschews
loved ones on this island. He was so,
you know, David Drake, who eschews celebrity, is caught up in it.
Well, no, I love this couple that they created, but that Wes has grown from the Will and Grace kid in front of the TV set to where you are today is like huge and
in a very short period
of time. AIDS compressed that a lot because it put the stakes so high, they were life or death, that it changed everybody. Like, are you into this or are you not into this? You know, are you out or are you in? Because if you're in, we're gonna out you. You know what I mean? And then once people got over that, we kept moving forward and going, we can get this done. We can get this done. Strategic activism is important. We're looking at Black Lives Matter now, and there's so many points of strategic needs that need to be addressed. It's overwhelming because it's so deep. Oh my God! It's
versus
so insane.
when I discovered somebody like Charles Busch, it felt like it was mine. It was my little secret. It was this little subversive that you had to find this theater. And I kind of liked the niche aspect of it because it was sort of our own. It wasn't, mainstream. I liked the sort of compartmentalization of it.
Still have that somewhat, don't you think?
Well, Charles, did you feel, because it seems to me that really you got the ball rolling in getting mainstream attention.
Yeah, well, I certainly maybe part of the way the stream was moving, but I do remember. Yeah, I mean, there was a period, I guess, just before AIDS, where we had gay restaurants and gay bookstores and gay theaters, and
right.
And there was something kind of marvelous. At the same time, I do think that's better that theater, the regular nonprofit theaters will do your play, and it doesn't have to be strictly a gay theater doing it. I think it's I think it's better just to be immersed into the whole world. But it was certainly was an exciting period to have all those places, and I mean, I guess in a way, like bookstores, I guess in general are an endangered species, but the gay bookstore, I guess, became difficult for a number of reasons. But one of the things was that all bookstores started carrying gay books, so you didn't have to strictly could only find these books in one place. But it was, on the other hand, it was a wonderful meeting place to go to different light bookstore in these different cities, the Oscar Wilde bookstore. I mean, they're wonderful, wonderful places, and I miss them. But I guess, certain point you become assimilated, right, David?
Right. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I loved all this places. It's like when I go to a drama bookstore and I know all these people around me are nerds, reading plays. And I'm like, oh, right. Who really wants to read a play? But I love like stepping into that nerd part of me with that little community. And that's the way those A Different Light or Oscar Wilde were, or Gay Treasures. Do you remember Gay Treasures?
With the porn star store?
Yeah.
Which then became I knew the West Village, my neighborhood, was changing when the Gay Pleasures porn star turned to become a maternity boutique. I think the times they are changing.
Well, the Gay Treasures was a bookstore, but they had these big cardboard boxes filled with physique pictorial and old gay porn magazines.
Wonderful.
Go through and find favorites for $1 and things.
Wow. And that's how. And I think that's how I found out that Tom Judson, my old friend Tom Judson, had become a porn star. My musical director and dear friend for all these last 10 years, and I'd known him from Vampire Lesbian, before Vampire Lesbian.
As a writer, composer.
Yeah, actually composed I'd met him before that, and then when we first were going to do Vampire Lesbians off Broadway, Tom composed the opening pre-show music. And then, then he kissed me. And then years later, I was at the magazine store on my corner, and I was looking through one of those Adam guides for porn, and suddenly there's my friend, and he's now doing this Gus Derrick, and he's a porn star. So I ran down to Gay Pleasures bookstore and got one of his movies out. And I must say, it's a strange phenomenon when you watch a porn film starring a friend of yours that you've known for 15 years, and suddenly in big rig. It's a very odd phenomenon.
It was very nice of you to show your support in that way, to go buy that porn.
I hadn't talked to him in a long time, and I called him up. I said, "What's going
on?" Wesley, I remember seeing you in SpongeBob on Broadway, and you were young. How old were you when that opened on Broadway?
SpongeBob was only a few years ago. I was I don't know. So it's 2017. Yeah.
So how old were you then? Were you late
30?
20s? Oh, all right,
30?
late 30. Okay, which is still very young. And I remember I had known somebody else in the cast, and I remember seeing people screaming for you and lining up for you at the stage door. I didn't know you at the time, and it was mostly girls and who didn't seem to care if you were gay or straight. They just thought you were great and you were young and you were hot and they loved you.
Well,
And so
Right.
that's what I'm saying, is that I think there has been an evolution where it is irrelevant to the audience, at least to younger audiences.
I think there's a huge contrast just in like my fiance is 8.5 years younger than me. And that window is like actually quite significant in terms of our development and our what society's comfort level was in terms of our adolescence and growing into being like Isaac came out in high school, I came out in college, and most of the people I know of my peer group were coming out in college, and most of his peer group were coming out in high school.
Right.
And I know that doesn't seem like a big deal, but those 4 years for like understanding who you are and how you see the world is so exponential. Like it's such a thing. So I do agree that now Gen Z and the kids, like, it doesn't matter if you're gay, straight, pan, bi, queer, whatever, like they see the person more than any other generation. They are so girls are obsessing over gay boys. Girls are obsessing, and it's also like if that boy was straight, they know that they can't have him. Like he's a celebrity, he's far away. So it's the same thing, you know. They can't have him, but they might as well obsess and fan over him, you know. So it is changing, and I think, you know, really for the better.
Yeah, I'm curious because there's always been this fetish that straight men have for two women. I'm curious if we're swinging to the way that maybe young girls would say, "Oh, I'd love to see two hot guys." I don't know if that is a thing.
Straight women have always been intrigued by gay men, and yeah, I mean, I think even when young girls fall, you know, get crushes on, like in my day, you know, David Cassidy and all those sort of, you know, smooth boys, you know, they become sort of accessible sex objects that are
non-threatening.
Non-threatening, right?
So, I mean, when I was in college, that I was the most, because I was never in the closet. I mean, I just was always, I never had to come out. Everybody sort of assumed, you know. So I just was the most notorious gay boy at Western, and I was so gay.
How gay were you?
I was so gay. Alan Cumming would have said, "Tone it down." I was so gay. Mary Kramer had said, "Enough." I was so gay, and so I was too gay for the gay boys on campus, you know, and I couldn't get laid because I was too gay. But all my girlfriends all wanted to fuck me. And
there you go.
I would go to the gay coffee house on Friday nights on campus, you know, and hoping to get laid, and I'd end up going home with, you know, a very beautiful lesbian or a girlfriend of mine, just, you know, because in those days, you know, you're so horny, you know, I could do it with anyone, you know, but I ended up like, I had this girl, you know, they're hanging out leaving my dorm room in the morning, and the docs on my floor in the dorm were all just like, "Dude, what's going on?" But, you know, okay, you know, next, you know, but just
you know, it brings up a good point, going back to David, because of course we are talking about The Night Larry Kramer Kissed Me, which will be streaming as a benefit this Sunday for the Provincetown Theater. Please check out we'll have a link on this show, All-Star Cast. David, I don't know if
we encourage you to donate to keep
because you're watching it for free, and so your whole family can sit and watch it. Send $20. That's like $4 a person.
Exactly.
You know, David, I was around you through the filming of the filming period. We were particularly close at that point. I had missed the original run. I didn't see you do the original run, but I was around for the filming, and I remember the issue of aging and how you would appear on film, and having been sort of the pretty boy on a billboard having aged. And I remember that we had a lot of discussions about this, not so much how you felt about it, but how the industry perceived you, because you had already been that boy.
Right. I was perceived as the boy, the gay boy next door. And, all of us have that problem, but therefore there wasn't anything in front of me, in terms of aging as a gay man. It was like, well, and then I didn't get all the good part. I mean, I was up for everything, you name it, I was up for it, but then it would be handed over to some straight guy, to play the part in the movies and the TV shows and things like that. And then that started breaking down as I was getting older. Then Dan Butler came out, and suddenly, there was a succession of people diminishing this idea of what a gay person was.
Right.
And that's changed over time. Dennis O'Hare has changed all that. I mean, there's a lot of people who've mixed all that up, who've shredded those narratives. But like everybody, I didn't grow into dad. I didn't grow into the dad character. I didn't grow into the judge character, the grandfather character.
That's kind of what I was going for. Is that I remember, and I have this image here is you when the play opened, and then here you are for the film.
Yeah.
And this, you had really talked about, I'm kind of the older boy. I'm not a man.
Gay boy.
Right. And
well, I was cute to be extra funny, and I wasn't funny enough to be or I wasn't handsome enough to be the leading man. There was a lot of, I fall in between. I'm a character actor.
Right. So again, facing the same aging issues that a straight actor would.
Right. Exactly. And I wasn't the goofy looking character actor. I'm not going to name names, but I didn't have that
name a name.
That automatically funny look when I walked on. But so it was tricky.
Nathan Lane. Can I say Nathan Lane?
Because that ridiculous puppy dog face, which is adorable.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
But he's a character actor.
And he's a character actor. You love him the minute you see him. He's like a great puppy dog.
And yet, though, what's fascinating is as time has gone on, he's grown into all of the great roles in theater. Because one never knows where it's going to go.
He's always been a real actor, and he's made the kind of money and fame that he needs to. And
Wesley, we don't want you to get depressed. There are options coming. You'll be able to work till you're 90.
Well, you will. I think you will. I think I will.
But also, I'm sort of redefining the adolescent, sort of sometimes narcissistic dreams that I once had. And I'm not saying that that's what people who want to become a star and who want to be whatever, that's bad. It's not. But I am sort of trying to reframe my dreams because
have your dreams changed?
Yeah, well, they've evolved.
Yeah.
The more that I became, more interested in writing and creating and producing my own stuff, you have to sort of create new dreams and sort of, I think, just adapt to what's happening in your life and what you're becoming interested in, rather than like, no, fuck, I still have to be a star. Why am I not a movie star yet? And which is sometimes, harder. Some days are harder than other days in that regard.
Yeah, sure. I think it's important, as you get older to, it's nice just if you can try to always have some kind of a dream and a hope to work towards. I don't know. I feel like, I don't know if I'm going to at this point want to do another play, or act another play.
I've heard you say that.
Before. I don't know if I want to do any more live performing, but I've got, all sorts of dreams and possibilities and things I'm working for and working toward. And I hope I always do.
Yeah.
Well, also, you and I had talked, for people who haven't heard, we did a whole discussion about Taylor the Algist Wife, which who would have thought that you were going to be writing a play that you weren't in, that was the toast of Broadway and a Tony-nominated play.
And it wasn't a dream of mine either, actually, in that case.
So there you go.
I hadn't really thought about, I got to get a mainstream, whatever that is, play on Broadway. It's just circumstances happened where things kept propelling, and it happened, and it was the most marvelous thing. But it wasn't like this big goal of mine. So
David, Is there, David, is there a goal that you are reaching towards? Because I know when you made the transition into directing, how happy I saw a light in your eyes that I had never seen before. And I don't, but that, that's been maybe 10 years or so. Is that still the fire, or is there something else you want to accomplish?
No, I love doing that. I love what I'm doing now. I'm really learning how to run an institution. Yeah, I've got goals. I mean, I want my theater to win a Tony Award as a regional theater one day. I've got how do I build towards that? How do I build towards making this last beyond me? And how do I keep growing? My parents were both teachers, so maybe that's part of me too, that I just want to keep growing, my community of artists. It gives me so much satisfaction. But I don't have any I've starred in movies. I've done that. I've been on TV. I've done all those things, So I don't really have any. And I'm like, okay, check. I checked all the lists, the boxes. I have a boyfriend now. I mean, I have things in my life that are much more personal.
You and I have to talk.
I know. Well, you shut down and look what happens.
Yeah, well, all right. Wesley, I'm just going to kind of change it a little bit for you. First, I'm going to ask you, if I were talking to the high school or college age Wesley, was there a role that you saw was the role you wanted to play?
Oh man, I don't. Wow.
I think he froze.
That's all right.
That question.
Am I there?
Yep, you're here. You're here.
Okay. Yeah, there was a sort of defining moment in my high school English class, my sophomore year, where my teacher, this amazing woman, Sue Poro, it was an arts high school, and so we studied more dramatic literature than we studied what every other high school was studying. There's lots of Shakespeare. And, that thing where you're doing Shakespeare and each person gets assigned a different role.
Oh, that's so bad.
Hello?
Yep. Are you still there? Yep. We got you.
Yeah, I'm here. Okay, so how much did you hear all of that?
No,
in and out.
Uh-oh.
In and out.
But I'm here now.
Yes.
Okay, so just I'll try to be concise. I'm sorry about my connection. No, there was just this moment in high school, my sophomore year of English class, where my teacher, we were reading, he was like, no one is allowed to read Iago. That's my role. And so she read Iago gorgeously, and I was just Iago. Yes. So I'm watching my teacher, I'm spellbound with her interpretation of this character. And I think in that moment, because I was always a performer, I was always singing and dancing and performing in a sort of presentational fashion. And it was in that moment where I realized I think I want to be an actor, is that moment where I was watching her performance and every word was like food to me. And I not only wanted to be an actor in that moment, but I desperately wanted to play the great villains.
Wow.
Including Iago. Yeah.
Because I know you had done Shakespeare young. You had done Falstaff, I know.
Yeah. Well, at drama school at North Carolina School of the Arts, I got to do a lot of Shakespeare. Yeah.
Is there now a goal role now that I'm talking to in today's?
I still haven't played Iago.
All right. Well, so it hasn't changed.
It's on the list. No, I would love to also get a chance to redo the MC, or not redo it, but just get another stab at it. I was 28 when I did it, and I want another go at that.
You see, I will say it's interesting because David and Charles know I come from the world of opera as a musician. And in opera companies, you can do a role, you do a run, and then you get to revisit. If that's one of your roles, you will revisit it many times. So it's not like, oh, I did it once and then it's over.
Yeah.
So I think that, opera singers get the opportunity to refine the role over 20, 30 years if they're fortunate, whereas actors, unless they're doing regional theaters often, they don't, they've done a role and then they're on to the next role.
Sure.
So it's really, really tough.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
That's, I'm curious, David, Yep.
But for Wes, I mean, some of those villain roles, you can do those now, and then you can do them again in 10 years or 15
Well,
years.
that's true.
That's
You know,
true.
some of the classic roles like that, the age thing isn't like so. Americans are so, well, Brits too, are so specific about like the age, the ingenue and the juvenile. And
Yeah. Well, the thing is, especially with Iago, it's usually played by someone in his late 40s or 50s, and really, it denotes that he's like 30 years old. So it's
And it depends on how old your Othello is.
Well,
If
like
it-
when we did
cast-
Boys in the Band, people think, "Oh, you guys are so young doing." We were all
I was one of those people.
characters are all in their late 20s and early 30s. It's
Yeah.
in the script, so these were
But
young
it was
guys,
cast-
but
it
they came
was
off as old.
It was cast across the road as everybody was the same age, so it wasn't as jarring as I thought it would be.
Well, yeah, Michael's turning 30. You know, he's in the script. You know, I'm 30.
And Charles, what I love about Charles is that he's been playing ingenues and grandmothers all along. It has never changed.
I this past season I played 16 years old in the beginning of The Confession of Lily Dare. Of course, I ended up old hag by the curtain, but they they brought it. They brought it. I love playing it. It is sort of odd because sometimes I find for myself though, when I look in costume, it's important for me when I look in the mirror, and I try to be objective. I don't know, and look in the mirror that for me I have to look like the character, and so there's part of me I would hate for somebody to say to their friend, "Oh, I saw this funny thing, and there was this old man, and he was dressed up as a little girl, and it was so
As
funny.
Juliet.
It looked so ridiculous, It's never. I never want the joke to be that way, but I think we pulled it off.
Well, it's funny. I just saw an interview with Dame Judi Dench and Sir Ian McKellen, and they said something they always wanted to do was Romeo and Juliet, and I'm like, well, why not? I'd see it.
Well, a few years ago, Meryl Streep and Kevin Kline did it for one night for a benefit for the Public Theater.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, it's maybe 8 years ago. Yeah, and I heard it was wonderful.
I saw Uta Hagen do a benefit. Did you see that, Charles?
I was there.
I did.
Virginia Woolf.
Yeah, I did.
Where she did a reading with Jonathan Pryce and
Oh, that was more than a reading because she was moving around.
Oh yeah, but I was sitting in the last row of the Majestic Theater. I mean, I was so far away, and a friend of mine said, "So how did she look?" I said, "Well, from where I was sitting, she looked like Britney Spears." I was like half a mile away.
Did I see that with you, Billy?
What?
Did I see that with you?
I think you did. Yeah.
I think I did too. It was a great. But it transcended age in a way that.
Yeah, and I will say that I feel that that's the responsibility of the audience. Frankly, I think the audience goes in with these preconceptions, and especially in a reading situation, I know people who hate readings because they don't have imagination, and I think that maybe because I grew up listening to a lot of recordings of performances. I developed that. I had no idea what they looked like, but the vocal performance, if there is a vocal performance, which is a whole other issue, I can then buy it. So,
you also have your plays have a set of rules that allows all those kinds of things with gender and age to be mixed around in a playful way. It's not a naturalistic approach to theater. The curtain lifts and you say, "Make the leap. We're going there."
Yeah.
You have this party, we all jump on and go with you, and it's so delightful.
I will say, Charles, when we did the Silver Cord together, I mean, just your presence in that piece, it was this sort of provided a safety for the rest of us. There was an element because it was you and 4 people like me, young people who weren't as known, and Charles sort of anchored us in a feeling of confidence and safety. That's
right.
I
just wanted to jump in and say, go ahead, Charles. No, Charles, go ahead.
No, I was just saying it was this Pulitzer Prize winning play from the 20s that have been so forgotten. And was it the Mint Theater? I forget, some Peccadillo Theater.
Peccadillo, yeah.
Yeah.
Can people find it online?
No.
It was a live thing.
Rare live thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it was an important play because it was the first. I think it was probably the first play that just explored the idea of a bad mother. You know, and so we did. It was one night. It was fine.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you. I'm very touched that you felt that way.
Oh, yeah.
May I just say that if I could run into 4 people like Wesley Taylor, I would be a happy man indeed. Although I will say, so Wes, I didn't mention this, but the time that we met very briefly, it was after the midnight performance of Boys in the Band of this recent point. And it was for people who were working who never got to see the show. And Charles had introduced the play, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And so I was with Charles and somebody was with us. And you came out and I went, oh my God, that's Wesley Taylor. And then they said, you want to meet him? No, I don't need to meet him. Because it just went, well, again, what it was lovely about that night, and I remember Charles and it was like a block party afterwards. Because everyone who we knew who worked.
What happened now? Now Billy's frozen. Whenever he says something nice.
Oh my God, here I am, I'm back.
You're back.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap anyway. So I'm going to remind people that this Sunday night, I have to look at it with the glasses, sorry, at 7 p.m., Provincetown Theater, Theater TER, not the British way, .org, provincetowntheater.org, 7 p.m., free screening of The Night Larry Kramer Kissed Me. It's live streamed. Is it going to live online or is it one time only, David?
One time only.
Oh, well, that means I'll have to steal it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'll get it. It's fine.
Yeah, we're not going to put it up online.
Well,
it's better to congregate for events.
So don't be late, because if you're late, you're fucked.
Well, there's a commercial at first with our sponsors. Come on and talk.
You compete. Is there going to be a break in it, or is it all the way through?
It's a 90-minute straight through.
Okay. And let me just remind people, there is the cast. David, give us some of the. Oh, and there's Larry Kramer right in the middle.
Yes, he was there.
Oh my God, he looks so cute with those overalls.
I know, right?
That was Larry's look.
That was his look, yeah.
David, again, tell people who's in the cast. I know that you don't have a list of. Oh, I'll put it up. You read it. Go ahead.
Oh, there it is. It's Brandon Cudero, Robin DeJesus, Andre DeShields, myself, Claiborne Elder, Rory O'Malley, Anthony Rapp, Chad Ryan, Wesley Taylor. Yes, there he is. And you get to see a lot of him, actually. Donaldson Shorter Jr., and Edie Wong. Well, they all get changed at the gym.
Yeah.
So there's some flashy ass that goes on in it.
There's also footage of
I was
Wesley.
just so happy that Wes could talk, you know. I knew what the outside. All those guys are so good.
You know, and if you want to see Wesley, there's lots of videos on YouTube, and you can see him singing in his underwear with the skivvies. I didn't bother going there.
Yeah, sure. You just heard about it.
Yes. Well, yes, somebody told me. I don't remember who it was. I want to thank all of you for doing this. First off, thank you to David, because David and I, we go back.
Oh my God!
Oh my God!
That was Provincetown 4th of July, like, I don't know, 10 years ago. David and I have appeared. We have appeared in plays. Should we say plays? David. And I will say, I'm just going to tell just a very quick David Drake story.
Billy lassoed me into doing a play with him in Vancouver.
And we had fun. We had a lot of fun. Cups. No. But we were on the road. We were on the road. We were in glamorous Vancouver. And there was, I have to say, here's one of the interesting things. I had done a lot of acting younger, and then when I got into writing and performing and doing stand-up, I got away from acting. And so I thought it would be fun to act with David because I adore him. The problem was that we did not adore each other on stage. I had...
No, we were...
What play was this?
Oh, can we say? We probably can't.
Is this one of those dirty
We
plays?
can say it. Sure, we can make it porn.
Okay, we did making porn. It was making porn. And
With Rockland.
oh yeah,
What?
with Vince Rockland. Yes, of the Rockland
Vince
brothers.
Rockland. And
Yes.
Billy and I were the only ones we only did it for 2 weeks. It was like
Right.
it was a fluke.
And,
It was like, do
And
it.
we were
Okay.
the only
Play
two.
actually works. That play works, by the way.
Oh yeah, no, it worked great. But we were not a happy couple, and
We weren't nude.
we were no. That's not completely.
Movie director.
I got out of bed once. But we
Movie
had a big fight scene that never worked. And David would say to me, play with it, do what you want, and I couldn't until our producer said to me, she said, he's wiping up the stage with you. Well, that's all you have to tell me. And make me a little competitive, and because I thought I was being cute and charming, and I was basically disappearing. And so at one point in the fight, I started walking around and avoiding him, which the character would do. And at one point I spun around and looked him in the face and started laughing. And he just turned and there was fire in his eyes. Don't you laugh at me. And he was holding a coffee mug, which he threw off into the wings, which shattered. And I thought, oh my God, he's mad at me. And so now I've turned into this little mousy character again. And we get off stage and he just looks at me and says, that was great. So what do you want for dinner? And I'm like, I thought you were mad. And it was
great.
It was a great experience. And so every night we did that scene a different way.
It was fun.
And that was a joy for me as an actor. I have to just say, David, I've learned so much from you. And
that was a fun experience, except nobody knew the lines except you.
No, that's true.
Oh, it was awful.
But anyway, so The Night Larry Kramer Kissed Me, provincetowntheater.org, 7 p.m. on Sunday. Please watch it. It's great. You'll get to see the lovely Wesley Taylor performing. You'll get to see the lovely David Drake. Charles Busch and I will be sitting here watching it by ourselves.
And Charles and I will be doing something later this summer, but we'll hold out on announcing that until a later date, okay? Right, Charles?
Oh my God, that means you'll be back.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I like hearing that. I want to thank you all for coming on, David. I adore you. Thank you for playing.
Billy. Thank you, Charles, for coming on It's My Life. Thank you, Wes, for being in my life now.
Oh my God. Thank you for having me.
First time we've ever spent together, by the way. Other than tech rehearsal.
That's right.
Hang around. I'll talk to you guys when we're off the air. But David, I just want to say thank you again. Charles Busch, you have my heart. I adore you. Without you, there would be no me. And I am so grateful to have you in my life anytime I need you. And sometimes when I don't.
Okay.
So thank you, Charles. And Wesley, my new friend, thank you so much for doing the show. Because again, you don't know me. You didn't know me from a hole in the wall. So I appreciate you just
I watched your interviews yesterday. I watched some of them and I just fell in love with you. So thanks for having me. And we're friends now.
You're great. And I hope we get to do something again sometime very soon.
Please. Yeah.
Thank you, Wesley. Take care. And everybody, do not forget, first off, right there, if you're watching on YouTube, there's a little button. Oh, Wesley, stay for a second. There's a little button. And if you click on it, subscribe to our YouTube channel, please. We appreciate it. And Thursday, we are going to have Frank DeCaro for another installment of people who are featured in his fabulous book, Drag, Combing Through the Bigwigs of a Show Business. And we will be having Alaska Thunderfuck, Chad Michaels, and a new addition from Chico's Angels, Kay Sadia will be here. So that will be a lot of fun. Read that. I have friends that tell me I don't plug everything. Go to billymasters.com. Everything is there. You can watch the shows on the TV link. You can watch them on our YouTube channel. And that's it. I have nothing else to say if that's possible. So take care. Please be safe out there. And just remember, if we're here, we're live. Bye-bye, guys.